Let me just start with the brief history of .NET, and then we talk about .NET Core when it comes, and we also be talking about what tools needs to be installed in the local machine, and then this session is going to be like bootstrapping as soon as possible on the .NET environment. Okay, so .NET was started in the year 2002, and what is their mission and how it is different from what Java brought in. Okay, we will talk about it. So basically, Microsoft is actually the focus of the Microsoft at that time, and also now as well. Like focus of the Microsoft is to bring in they've already were working with VB Visual Basic, and then they bring in Visual Basic in the Visual Basic .NET, and then they bring in the C# .NET, and then finally they bring in the F# .NET, which is functional language. So the focus of Microsoft is primarily on the languages and one platform. So they just want to grow their own platform, the Microsoft itself as a platform, and they build up a lot of languages. So they have multiple languages like VB, C#, and F#. So they have their language pool basically, and they have to have some platform that allows these languages to be compiled and executed and run within the Microsoft platform. Okay, so but each of these languages has their own data types and specifications. So this is the problem, right? So they face this problem. Okay, so how to solve this problem and come to a single byte code where it can be executed within the operating system. It is Microsoft operating system. Okay, Microsoft runtime. So what they did, they say that I create a language specific compiler like native compiler. So it says that I should be having a VB compiler. Okay, VB compiler, and we have a C# .NET compiler, and then we have F# compiler or native compiler whatsoever. So it converts it into a intermediate language. Okay. Intermediate language is basically independent of the like it doesn't depend, there is no specific data types, etc. So it comes to a single point where VB.NET suppose has integer. To declare a number, it has a different type, and the same thing is different in C# and F#. So it should consolidate to a single type. So that's why all of these compiler are written in such a manner it converts everything into an intermediate language, which we call it as MSIL, Microsoft Intermediate Language. So it converts that into an intermediate language, and then this intermediate language will get converted into the bytecode with the help of CLR, Common Language Runtime, which is in a common language runtime, and then it converts into the bytecode which gets executed into the Microsoft platform. Okay. So that is how it solves this problem. Microsoft solved this problem of multiple languages, converted into MSIL, and then CLR, Common Language Runtime, and finally it gets executed in the platform. So what this make use of it? So what intermediate language is making use of it is CTS, Common Type System. These are basically the components of the .NET. So you will be able to understand it if you also look and search on the Google that this is the Common Type System. Okay, we have to bring in the commonalities, right? So we also have Common Language Specification, which is language specific. This is type specific specification. This is Common Language Specification. Basically, intermediate language make use of this Common Type System and Common Language Specification. Okay, just put it down here. Common Language Specification. Okay, so this is the components of the .NET framework. We have intermediate language, Common Language Runtime, Common Type System, and Common Language Specification. Okay, so that is how normally the .NET works. Okay, so now in the .NET stack, like we also have some framework-based library. Okay, so basically in every language there are certain utilities, there are certain functions which are clubbed together into a package or into a library which gets utilized into the application, right? Suppose I want to do some arithmetic calculation, so I can make use of the existing functions like math.square root, math.max, something like that. So there are certain libraries which are already built in. Okay, so there are base library, and there are application specific library or framework level library, and there are user-defined library, right? Like we create our own functions. We have framework-based library. So we also have base library as well, separate. And this framework-based library, in the base library, we have assemblies like. So in the assembly, we do have two type of assembly. One is the .dll. If you have not heard of it, you might encounter it while you will do some programming in the .NET. So the second one is .exe. This one is those who are familiar with Windows operating system. We usually download .exe and install it, right? So they are installable applications. These are DLL is nothing but dynamic link library, which is basically a set of functions packaged together and actually becomes can be used as a dependency in another program. Okay, so this is DLL. In the Java world, we normally create jars and all, and also in the exe also we create jar. So you can relate in that case. So that is how we have everything in the .NET. Now, how do we relate it with the Java? Those who are coming from Java. So what Java has solved, Java says that I have one language to deal with, but multiple platform. I want to make it accessible across platform to make it platform independent. So what it does, it says, okay, I have one Java language, but the challenge with me is the operating system. Like I have to run it with within Linux, I have to run it with Mac, I have to run it in Windows. So what it does, it says that, okay, I will have the Java program, and then we convert this Java into a dot class file. Okay, convert this into a dot class file. Okay, and then we run it basis on the operating system runtime. So we need a runtime JRE for Windows, we need JRE for Linux, we need JRE for Mac. Okay. So that is how it is different from .NET. So it says that we need a different JRE to be executed on the platform and to be present within the platform on which this class file can be executed. Okay, so its focus is on one language, multiple platform. Its focus is on multiple languages, one platform. So that is how it is different. Both are object oriented, and there are certain things that C# has derived from Java because Java came earlier than C#. So it takes up certain. And nowadays, normally every other language learn from each other, and they want to make sure that they bring in the goodies in the right way within the language, so that the problems, the real world problems or the inherent problems within the language could be solved, and we can give you can say we can enable the developers to write program which is efficient and performant and can solve the problem. Okay, so this is the introduction to .NET to start with. So this .NET framework starts from 2002, and then in the year of 2016 they thought that, okay, I could not actually give the flexibility of running this .NET 1 into different operating system, so I should redesign my .NET framework and then make it accessible across platforms. So it gives that name as .NET Core. So in the year 2016 it comes up with .NET Core 1.0, which were partially you can say partially open source at that time. But when .NET Core 2, 3 comes in, so starting from .NET Core 3, it becomes totally MIT licensed, which is basically open source license. And then people started adopting it and liking it. We can easily use it. It is free, open source, cross-platform .NET Core, which we can run it in Linux or Mac or even Windows. Like even Windows is the one which starts with. So that's why even it is lighter, faster, performant compared to the previous .NET framework. So those who were developing certain things in the .NET framework, they started migrating their stack into the .NET Core, and a lot of things were previously not API driven. So there is Windows Communication Foundation framework in the .NET, older .NET, but in the .NET Core, we use everything with the help of REST API. We do everything with the help of REST API, and there are a lot of changes in that case. So I think those who are starting with .NET, they should start from the .NET Core. And it's fine that if you do not know the earlier one, so as soon as you learn about it, primarily in the new stack, new startups, etc., making use of it. So in the previous case, you can read through it and don't worry about that. You don't know the older one. Ultimately, the basic fundamental way of running it is quite similar. So in order to run the .NET application, what you guys have to install in your local machine. So let me just talk about that quickly. The local environment setup. So what IDE we can use in order to run the .NET? So first of all, the base language that we are going to use is C#, C# language. Okay, to start with. Okay, C#.NET, and we should know C# basics to start with. So we'll cover that C# basics in the subsequent session. Second is we need an IDE to run the C# code. We can also run it within the Notepad or something, and we can install the .NET tool and then use the command line like the way we do with Java. Similarly, we can achieve it with C#. So we have .NET SDK. We can SDK tool that we can use. Otherwise, it's fine that to start with we can use with IDE. So what IDE we have to use? We can use one is the Visual Studio, Visual Studio Community Edition. So those who are practicing in the local machine, try to learn something. So it starts with Visual Studio Community Edition. Okay, and it also has Professional Edition and Enterprise Edition as well. Okay, so it's fine. Like you can simply download the community edition from the website Visual Studio. You can just simply search in the Google and you can install that Visual Studio Community Edition 2022. We will be working on this edition. And those who are saying that, okay, I'm on Linux, I don't want to install Visual Studio because it has a dependency on the Windows platform. So they can also start from the Linux platform if they are on Linux or Mac. So they can use the Visual Studio Code, and we can install the extensions within Visual Studio Code to run the .NET application. So we will see both of them so that you are familiar with to start with, and later on we will continue on this tool. It's up to us those like to do the same. We can do the same thing over here as well. Okay, so that's the only thing. And secondly, in the .NET Core, we are going to cover .NET. Thank you so much for watching out with me and understanding the concept of .NET. And stay tuned for the new sessions. We'll be sooner presenting to you. Thank you so much. Bye.